but I remember Jack Burns, he said, I got one quarterback that's hurt and can't play in Rich Gannon. I got another one dinged up, doesn't know where he's at. I got another one, Brad, that's hyperventilating on the sidelines, hoping he doesn't go in the game. So I learned to be ready real quick.
This podcast is presented by Visa, a network giving small businesses tools to grow, overcoming the odds, rewriting the playbook, delivering under pressure. The MVPs of small business lead their teams to victory all year long. Visa is proud to provide playmakers everywhere with more tools to help grow their businesses and help them achieve even greater success. Because the more people we can empower, the more we all win. Visa, a network giving small businesses tools to grow. Welcome back to Beyond the X's and O's. And today we sit down with one of my favorite guys in the NFL and all my time, Brad Johnson. Won a Super Bowl with the Buccaneers. But of course, we start in his high school years. He actually went to a big hoop school in North Carolina. Roy Williams was one of the basketball coaches there. Brad Doherty played basketball there. So there was that legacy of basketball. And he was actually a great basketball player. He was recruited by the likes of North Carolina and Georgia Tech, and had to make this tough decision between Georgia Tech basketball or Florida State football. And obviously goes to Florida State. Talks about the quarterback room there, which is incredible. Heisman Trophy winner, Heisman Trophy runner-up, professional baseball players, other NFL quarterbacks on the competition. They only ends up playing starting 7 games if Florida State as a quarterback. He plays basketball his first 2 years, and Bobby Bowden makes him decide, say, hey, you're falling back in the quarterback world here. You got to make a choice. And obviously he chooses football, and that turned out well for him. He talks about the impact Bobby Bowden had on him and so many other players. One of the great stories of all of our shows so far is when Brad talks about the Florida State Quarterback Classic that Coach Mark Richt started back in the 90s. Actually, I think it was the late 80s at Florida State with the quarterbacks there. It grew into Florida State versus Georgia. You'll laugh so hard you'll cry. We obviously talk about Brad's NFL experience, his time in the World League, and we don't talk enough about the World League. The World League was this great semi-professional football league that developed so many quarterbacks in the mid-'90s, and Brad was one of them. Talk about Super Bowl footballs again, and I'm going to keep talking about Super Bowl footballs with every quarterback we bring on that's played in the Super Bowl. And his story about breaking in 108 footballs for the Super Bowl, and then later on, 10 years later, being accused of being a cheater. This one will make you laugh. And then we end just talking about his incredible wife, Nikki, who really is the athlete in the family more than Brad, his 2 superstar kids. And I think you're really going to enjoy this time with Brad Johnson. Stay tuned. Well, fired up today to have not just a great guest, but one of my dear friends, a guy who has made me laugh over the years. I've admired him as a football player, a competitor, a dad, a leader in his community, but he is one of the funniest dudes you will ever meet, Brad Johnson. Brad, thanks so much for being on.
Appreciate you having me on, Trent. Thank you, man. We've battled many times over the years, so it's been fun.
Yes, we have. Well, I think one of the funnest things we've done on the show, and a bulk of our audience is our quarterbacks, quarterback dads, athletes, kind of the youth space, grassroots space. We talk about the high school years and you growing up, Owen High School, being a dual sport athlete. Talk to me about what high school sports was like at your high school, what Friday nights were like, if you played on Friday nights, the whole vibe around high school sports as you were growing up.
Yeah. First of all, my dad ran summer camps called Camp Ridgecrest and Camp Crestridge for boys and girls. So overnight camps and those kind of things. So I grew up with a ball in my hand at all times and someone to play with at all times. So love sports. Ended up playing football and basketball at Owen High School. The famous basketball coach that used to be there was a guy named Roy Williams, who was at University of North Carolina. So he was making $3,500 as a PE teacher. And the guy that I looked up to, a basketball player, was a guy named Brad Doherty. He was an All-American, played in North Carolina and played a bunch of years in the NBA. So the standard was set high. And my favorite sport, Trent, was basketball. Played it every day of my life from second grade all the way through freshman year of college. Played 2 years of basketball in college. But basketball was my love. Basketball was my passion. And I ended up starting as a senior. I mean, as a freshman, both football and basketball. And I remember just a quick little story. So my first game as a freshman, I thought I played pretty good. I went 7 for 10, had 1 throwaway, had 2 interceptions. One was at the end of the half on a Hail Mary. The other one was at the end of the game on a Hail Mary. So I read the paper the next day, and they said Brad Johnson, the freshman, was erratic during the game, and basically that's why we lost the game. I'm like, yeah, I played great. That's right, erratic. I got the word erratic and ecstatic wrong in my vocabulary. So I learned not to read too many papers, you know. But we had really good teams in basketball and football. My first 3 years kind of stunk in football. We were 4 and 6, 5 and 5. My senior year, I was actually going to quit football and just focus on basketball. And I had a coach named Kenny Ford that talked me into coming out and playing. He said it's going to be the most fun year of your life, and we're going to win and have fun. And so I'm thankful for my coaches, Kenny Ford, that taught me into coming back and playing football, which I had a career in, and my basketball coach, Bill Burrs. It was just guys that love sports, guys that made an impact on kids. And to this day, I still call them coach. And that's a pretty unique thing to say 30 years later.
Yeah, that's really neat. So the first 3 years, quarterback, rough, tough sled, not very good. That last year, did Kenny Ford bring a different vibe to the team? Was it a bigger deal in the school? What were some of the major changes that got you to come back and enjoy that senior season so much?
The work ethic was there. But I think the belief in us, the belief in team, the belief in let's have fun and let's win and let's get respect. And so, I mean, winning kind of cures a lot sometimes, but the work ethic, the passion, the belief in each other's and encourage someone besides yourself is a big deal. And that's what we did. And, you know, to this day, we still, you know, they're my teammates and get together in the summertime, those kind of things. But I think that's what both Bill Burrs, my basketball coach, and Kenny Ford, they brought to the table. In basketball, I can still remember all the plays that we ran. I remember the games that we played. I don't remember if we won, what the score was, but what I remember is the players that I played with and the meaning of teammate. That was a big deal that was kind of within our school and those teams.
Do you think this generation of young people, and you have 2 sons that just one playing his senior year and one in college, do you think this generation of athlete appreciates these times enough? Like us old farts, we look back at it and go, those are the greatest times of our lives. And do you think they're appreciated enough? Or do you think they're always looking to the next thing?
A little bit of both. Social media's changed a lot. And so you're never as good as that guy that out there in California. You're never as good as that guy that threw for so many yards in Texas. And you're trying to prove your worth that you got some label or some stardom, you know? And so when we played, we didn't know when we were being recruited, we didn't know who were on the other quarterbacks were for the other teams. Like, we're going to the University of, you're going to Fresno State. Like, did you know the other first, second, third string or who else they were recruiting? So those things have changed. But I think when you do find the coaches that have been around a long time or coaches that are coming back that were kind of taught the right way, that want to impact kids and don't get caught up into winning and losing, but impacting lives and impacting people, impacting communities, then it kind of breeds winning and confidence and togetherness and happiness and bond and those kind of things. So I think it's tougher on kids these days. I do. And but it's times are changing, and as parents, we got to help our kids through that process too.
Yeah. So at Owen High School, it was so I'm assuming it was a big hoop school since Dean Smith was one of the coaches. Brad Doherty.
Roy.
I'm sorry, Roy Williams. Sorry, I said D. Smith. Roy Williams. So was it mainly a hoop school? Was that the primary sport that kind of ran the pageantry of the school?
At that time, it was, and. And guys played multiple sports. We all played football and basketball, and some of those guys played baseball. Now you're kind of getting guys that just play one sport. But yes, at our high school, basketball was what we did. We did it, when the season's over, we're at the youth park, and in summertime we're going to basketball camps, and we played year round. Those kind of things. So that kind of gets lost a little bit now. Kind of, some guys get kind of central focused, and I think that's a big thing with ADs, honestly, with football, basketball coaches, and really kind of obviously encouraging, but then kind of making the jigsaw puzzles fit, especially in summertime practices where kids can play multiple sports.
So I want to dig into that a little bit because that's been one of the themes. We've had multiple Hall of Famers on. We've had journeymen like yourself and me on. We've had young guys on, and this idea of dual sport athletes, for the most part, most of us that have played in the NFL for a long time or are playing were dual sport athletes. So dive into a little bit about why you think it was so beneficial. We'll get into your Florida State experience and how you recruited, but just the lessons learned by playing hoops year round, but also playing football and always having a ball in your hand and different coaches and being, you might be the star in one and a role player in another. So dive into that a little bit with me.
I think competing, being a part of team, being active. You go home, you can sit at home all day. There's only so many weights you can lift and so many sprints you can run, but being active. If you're playing basketball, you're dealing with, is it a full court press? Is it a 1-2-2-2 press? Is it a 1-3-1 defense? Is it an even front 2-1-2? Is it a man? Is it Alabama's play? Is it a pick and roll situation? Is it what's the time on the clock? Do we need a timeout? You're just dealing with situations. You're dealing with competing. You're dealing with winning and losing. And you're dealing with people. And then, baseball, the same thing. What's the count? What's the, how many guys are on base? And you're always thinking, like everyone talks about quick twitch muscles, but how about quick twitch thinking? Those kind of things. So I think it's big. And I think, I don't care if you're playing ultimate frisbee or golf or tennis or you are competing, but I think the other part is dealing with adversity. Like, I think Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is maybe the only guy that's ever won every game he's ever played, in high school and college and those kind of things. So, but get used to it, and how you're going to bounce back and those kind of things. So I definitely, what's changed now is guys do get to one sport pretty quick. I tell every kid to play as many sports, and definitely till middle school. And then hopefully in high school, maybe you can get to 2 sports. And then at time, if you're that elite kid, maybe you're junior, senior, then you're down to 1 sport, that kind of thing. But I think it carries over to everything that you do. Thinking, situations, competing, and just winning and losing and dealing with adversity and all the above. And for the love of the game. For the love of the game is huge.
Yeah, just loving competing, loving being around the guys, loving the ups and downs of games. I'll add another one, spatial awareness for quarterbacks. A lot of quarterbacks watch your show, and I'll just use an example. You were a great basketball player, and we'll get into that. You had a great feel for the pocket. Hockey players, basketball players, those are the 2 sports that you see a really incredible carryover to how quarterbacks play in the pocket. They're used to tight quarters. They're used to bodies moving around them. They're used to finding little creases on the court or on the ice. You see so many of these quarterback-only kids that haven't played basketball or hockey, and they just don't have that spatial awareness. They see color and they move too much. They don't feel comfortable with bodies around them. So just another reason, if you're a dad out there and you're debating whether to have your kid keep playing quarterback and another sport, have them play all the sports. As Brad's saying, it can only help his development. I want to get into your recruiting a little bit. First of all, as this use your junior year in high school, how tall were you at that time? You're about what, 6'5"?
6'4", 6'5" at that time. Had a perm in my hair, had curly hair. So
nice. Had the full perm, huh?
Just tight. Had a little pick in the back too.
Perfect. Had you gotten your muscles yet, or were you real skinny?
I was skinny.
Kid?
I was jumping rope all the time. I was running miles. I was training for basketball, not for football at that time. And I was skinny, played basketball all the time, and probably a little awkward, probably talked a little awkward, and just kind of going through the high school growing up,
And were you heavily recruited as a basketball player, or were you recruited as a football player, or both?
Yeah, so I was in between basketball. I keep talking about basketball, but that's what I wanted to do. I grew up wanting to play for I want to play for 2 teams. I want to play for either Dean Smith at North Carolina or Bobby Crimmins at Georgia Tech. So my recruiting process, I got down in football schools as basically North Carolina, Florida State, and Alabama in football. And then basketball was either North Carolina, which they said I could come there, but I'd be kind of way down on the bench. So I really was going to go to Georgia Tech. That was the guy I want to play for, was Bobby Crimmins. And so Coach Crimmins pulls me into his office, and he said, Brad, you got a scholarship here. You can be here. But let me tell you something. I only play 5 guys. And the guy that I'm bringing in your position is a guy named Dennis Scott. So Dennis Scott, he said, so Dennis is going to play, and you might can back him up, And so Dennis Scott, so Dennis Scott changed my life, and he probably doesn't even know who I am. So, but he said, Brad, what do you want to do? What's your deal? I said, I want to play basketball, but he says, but what do you have most potential? I said, I got most potential in football. I just hadn't worked at football enough. And he says, Brad, do what's best for you. So it became where he wasn't selfish for his program getting me there, but it was like what was best for me. And that's why I appreciate Coach Cremins and probably appreciate Dennis Scott kind of being there because I watched him from my couch and eat popcorn many days shooting the three.
He was incredible. So now we'll fast forward. You end up going to Florida State. Did that conversation with Coach Cremins light a fire underneath you for football? And then how did you end up at Florida State?
It came down to either I was going to Georgia Tech to play basketball or Florida State to play football. Florida State at that time, they were selling a guy named Vinny Testaverde, which you know very well. He was the Heisman winner at University of Miami, national champion, and all that kind of stuff. And that was a prototypical 6'5", 225-pound quarterback that could stand in the pocket, and that was the selling point. And they said, Brad, we're getting ready to change our program. We're bringing in quarterbacks like you. And so it was just the right fit. I felt great with, obviously, Coach Bowden and Mark Rick, who's now my brother-in-law. He's the QB coach. I felt like it was the right fit. I felt like that was going to could develop me over time. And also, to be honest with you, when I went there, I asked myself the question, if I never played, got injured or got benched or whatever, would I be happy and content at that school? And do I trust the coaches? That was a time of transfer portal at that time. And kind of those things did come true, but that's the reason why I ended up going to Florida State.
You know, that's an incredible point right there. And it's not talked about enough. We haven't talked about enough here is, I've had 3 girls go through recruiting. You've had 2 boys. You have to choose a place that if football or volleyball or whatever is taken away from you, you feel like you still have fit, you still have purpose, you can still be content, a word you use. So that was huge that came down in your recruiting process and that decision-making. Now, interesting. So you're going to Florida State to play football, but the story changes when you get there because you end up playing hoops, correct?
Right. The first year I got redshirted. So Casey Weldon, who you know very well, a lot of times we'd go play tennis before football practice. We weren't doing anything. We were just running scout team, that kind of thing. But I was like, what am I doing here? Like, scout team is not fun. I left Owen High School as an parade All-American, and now I'm 7th string running scout team. I didn't get it, Put these other 6 bums, and they all made pros too. But so I walked onto the basketball team. I started about half the year, came out early because I left football, so I got playing, went to the NCAAs twice, and my 2 years that I played basketball there. But my problem was, the next year, my second year, I was late going into basketball. Couldn't start till probably December, January, till after football was over, and I was out of shape. And then I was also missing spring football, the 20-day practice. I was getting in 10. So Coach Bowden says, I'm not going to make you decide, but I'm going to tell you, the other quarterbacks they're getting more time in than you are. And so that time I said, why did I really come here? I came here because I wanted to eventually play at Florida State. I eventually want to be a pro and let this be my passion. Let this be, why I came to Florida State to play football. That was my most potential. So all those conversations help.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about your time at Florida State, that quarterback room. Those guys ended up playing the NFL. I know all of them very well. When we get back from this break, we'll be right back. This podcast is presented by Visa, a network giving small businesses tools to grow, overcoming the odds, rewriting the playbook, delivering under pressure. The MVPs of small business lead their teams to victory all year long. Visa is proud to provide playmakers everywhere with more tools to help grow their businesses and help them achieve even greater success. Because the more people we can empower, the more we all win. Visa, a network giving small businesses tools to grow. All right, so Coach Bowden kind of explains to you, listen, you're really good at basketball, but you're falling behind in football. There's other good quarterbacks in that room. Talk about that room a little bit. I know that room, but I don't think a lot of other people do.
Starting with Danny McManus, great quarterback at Florida State, threw for 52,000 yards in Canadian League. Chip Ferguson, he won a Sugar Bowl. Pierre Tom Willis, he played 4 years in the NFL. Casey Weldon was a runner-up to the Heisman. Played 8 years in the NFL. Charlie Ward, he was there with us. He won a Heisman, national championship, ended up being an 11-year NBA player. Chris Winkie, who won a national championship, a Heisman, played in the NFL, and whatever he's done. And then another guy named Kenny Felder, who was, I think, a late first round or second round baseball draft picked in the Major League Baseball. So we all thought each other stunk. We all thought we were the best ones, the king of the hill. And but we all somehow survived it, man. But Survive.
You got to talk more about that because I know it. Like I'm giggling because I played with PT and I played with Casey. I got to know you while I was playing in Tampa, and then would hear the stories. And we got to talk about what you guys call it, the quarterback Olympics,
quarterback classic. Just a quick story at Florida State. Me and Casey Weldon were best friends, and Peter Tom Willis and Chip Ferguson, they were best friends, and we go play doubles tennis, and then we only took one car. So the winner got to sit in the front seat. The loser sat in the back seat. And then the losers got dropped off at the convenience store. The losers bought the Gatorade, and they walked home from the Gatorade store. And then while they were driving by, you're honking the horn and holding up number one sign the whole way, So it was competitive, Not just a football field. Like, we took more pride in winning that. But then we did this thing called Quarterback Classic. So Coach Mark Richt, our quarterback coach, we ended up making it Georgia and Florida State eventually. And so basically there were 10 events.
Take as much time as you want. Just don't go through this fast. Because the first time you guys told me about remember I asked if I could go. I think it was like 98 or 99. I was begging if I could go. And you guys nope. That time it was just Florida State. It's only Florida State. It sounds like the greatest time of all time.
It was. So it started out, we actually went to his mother-in-law's place. And it was one-on-one basketball, horse, darts, horseshoes, corn toss, some kind of a golf event, and the things have kind of grown over time. So it became ping pong, corn toss, darts, air hockey, all these events. And it's a 10-7-5-3-1 point system for the winner. So you're playing not only to win the first place, but you might be trying to get that third or fourth or fifth or sixth spot just to get that one thing. And so all these points add up, and at the end of the event, there's going to be a champion, Now, I did win it 9 times. I did win that.
I know. I was going to tee you up on that. Yeah. I was going to tee you up on that.
You talking one-on-one, there was some bloody noses out there playing basketball, and, but the thing about, we always talk about the 3 things. There was competitive, integrity, and then the winner takes – winners win. That's what it was kind of about. So, but in the greatness of it, we brought all these Florida State quarterbacks, and then we brought all these Georgia quarterbacks, and then we kind of collided all these guys together. But we all had the same stories, all same friendships, and it became a 2-day event, and then we did all night events, and But you find out, and then I tell you the funny thing too. Like, we played at the house up in Athens, Georgia, so. This event took place. Well, I messed up my elbow from air hockey. I was slamming the air hockey playing against Aaron Murray. Then I was playing ping pong with Coach Rick, and he got mad. He kicks a ping pong table. So the next day, I called the Dallas Cowboys. Said, I can't come to minicamp. I got some crazy injury. It was really from air hockey. Coach Rick, he's laying right here beside me. It was just like Apollo Creed and Rocky Balboa. He broke his toe because he kicked the ping pong table. We got ice bags all over us, like just talking about trying to win this quarterback classic champion. You know what I mean? So it was fun. It was real. And it was, still bragging rights today.
Did the belt start there? Because we'll get in later in the show about all the belts you have. Is that where the belt started?
No, the belt started after my career was over and I was bored. And so I would make these homemade belts. I go to Hobby Lobby and get the weight belt, and I get the Gorilla Glue, and I get a ping pong paddle, and I get a ping pong and stick it on there. I buy all the sequins. And so these belts, we got racquetball, shuffleboard, air hockey, golf, tennis. And so I made all these belts. And so, I kind of found out, to be honest. And so when you play, so if I played you, it would have, if you beat me, it would say Trent versus Brad, and your name always goes first. And though if you won it, you'd basically take that champion belt and put it on your car, like a hood ornament, and just drive around town. And it was, and so most people are playing for golf, and you're trying to play for $5, $100, or cheese and crackers. No, we're playing for the belt. That's what you wanted. You took more pride in the belt than you did anything else. And so it's competitive, man. So, but as I got older, I found out if I want to be successful and keep this belt and my pride up, I'm just going to find people that I can beat, just so I can keep my belt and feel proud about it, So I'm sweating talking about it.
So your legacy has the belt legacy. I'll tell you a story real quick. I don't think I've ever told you this. you told me this. I think we were texting back and forth about a belt you had won, and you were bragging about something. So I go to the golf course the next day. I was in Tampa, and I said, okay, Brad Johnson has this thing with belts. We're going to do it with shirts. So instead of playing for like your $5, $10, $15, whatever it is, we're going to play. It's called the shirt game. And you get to go before the round and pick out the shirt that the other guy is going to buy you if you beat him. And then you play for a shirt, and you wear the shirt that he bought you the next time you play. So then I took it to Cleveland, I took it to Seattle, I took it to San Francisco. So there's country clubs all over the country playing the shirt game. Austin, that in Austin it grew into like just the merch games. Like you go in there and get a pair of shoes and be like, when I beat you today, you're buying me these FootJoys. So that was all inspired by you.
Great to pass on the legacy. That stings more than paying money. There's no doubt about that. So
way more. And then when the dude rolls out and the stuff you bought him the next day, there's nothing worse than that. And then guys start getting like initials put on it or dates that he beat you. Yep. Oh, it's humiliating. Give me your best. Bobby Bowden passed recently, and he's one of the greatest coaches of all time. I know he had a huge influence on you. You always get connected to Coach Rick because he's your brother-in-law. But talk to me a little bit about Coach Bowden, the influence he had on you, what you saw in those incredible years at Florida State. You mentioned the quarterback room, but more specifically, Coach Bowden.
Yeah. Coach Bowden was the head coach at Florida State for 34 years. You'll never get anything like that again. Before his time, obviously had a 14-year run of winning 4. I've been in the top 4 every year from like 1987 through 2001 or something, whatever that was. And so Coach Bowden, you talk about class, talk about handling unbelievable and people decision, the coaches that he brought in, stable. Talk about the players he brought in, didn't have people coming and going all the time. He made it work for everybody. You talk about respect. He's respected by all. And it's pretty amazing. Won 357 games, but that's not what we talk about. And I remember when he won his 200th game, I was there at Florida State. And so he called a meeting, and my roommate was Gene Haupt. And I said, Gene, we were supposed to meet at 1:30. He called a 1 o'clock meeting. And so I said, Gene, something's up, man. He may retire today. I don't know. This doesn't feel right to me. I don't know. And he called us in there, and he gave his testimony. And that doesn't really happen that often either, especially at that level. And it was pretty amazing. He goes on and wins all the games that he did in the national championships. And the cool thing about Coach Bowden was when they named the field after him, I think 2013, we had about 300 or 400 players lined up from the goalpost all the way out to midfield, 10 rows back and whatever it was. And we weren't talking about the national championships. We weren't talking about how tough it was or the mat drills we did. We were talking about how he impacted our lives and how most of us have become coaches, people in the community, dads, fathers, all the above, and how we try to pass it on too. And that's his legacy to me. And so it's pretty awesome to say that he was my coach.
It is pretty amazing. I was asked this question, I think, last year sometime, of all the guys I played with from different colleges, who are the best players? And I said, you know what? I don't know who the best players were. You could argue Miami, Florida State, neck and neck. But I'll tell you who the best people are. The best people I ever played with were Florida State Seminoles. What you just said is so true. Whether it's Derek Brooks or Warwick Dunn or Casey or yourself or whatever Seminole you played with, there was something more to them than just football. They could have been a Hall of Famer like Derek Brooks, but they're a Hall of Famer off the field as well. So it really speaks to Coach Bowden's legacy. I'm glad you touched on that. Well, we're going to go to our second break. When we get back, we're going to talk about Brad's pre-draft process and his time in the NFL, and then we'll end up talking about his incredible family and the impact he's having now. We'll be right back. Beyond the X's and O's is brought to you by State Farm. Just like State Farm offers surprisingly great rates for your car insurance, I want to share with you a surprisingly great moment from my career, and it came from Super Bowl 35, and it came actually when I was playing terribly. I started off the game brutal, couldn't hit anything, missed Brandon Stokely wide open on a crossing route, and Jamal Lewis in the flat. I didn't have enough energy. We're at a TV timeout. I'm sitting there in the huddle waiting for the play call to come in, and we substitute Sam Gash onto the field. And Sam Gash, one of my favorite teammates of all time, comes up to me, grabs me by the chest plate and says, "We need your juice. We need your energy. You're not yourself today." I said, "You know what? You're right." And immediately I had that spark. The hair on my arms stood up, and that was the series. threw the first touchdown to Brandon Stokely of Super Bowl 35. And that's why I love the journey of the quarterback. There's so many surprisingly great lessons to be learned from this unique position. And remember, whether you're a Super Bowl winning quarterback or an armchair QB relaxing happily at home, State Farm provides coverage that meets your needs at a price that fits your budget. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. All right, so you touched on it, your career at Florida State. How many games did you start? You start 12 games total, I think in your career
7.
there?
I threw 13 touchdowns and 8 picks. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know it wasn't many because the dudes you had in that room, and they all end up playing professional something, right? Football or basketball or baseball. But when you played, and I do remember this, I don't know if enough people talk about this, because when you did play, you played very well. But Casey ended up being a Heisman Trophy the runner-up to the Heisman Trophy. PT ended up playing for the Bears for 4 years and Tampa for 1. I mean, you had guys in front of you that had great college careers. So as you go to the draft, what were you being told, and what was that pre-draft process?
Yeah, I think I was a little bit of a late bloomer, Trent, because I spent so much time playing basketball, and I was kind of growing into football. I was going to be that late developed kind of guy. And so I remember the New York Giants, Jim Fossil, they said they were going to draft somebody about the 3rd or 4th round and kind of develop someone. At that time, they had Phil Simms and Jeff Hostetler. And so I was like, that'd be the perfect fit, And so I went to the combine. I thought I was the best quarterback there. And really, they invite 17 guys, and then they invite 3 extra guys. It was me, TJ Rubley, and Bucky Richardson. We're the guys that throw to the DBs and the linebackers and those kind of things. And I left. I was like, I should be a first-round pick. But every GM, every coach didn't think that, And there was a reason why. I wasn't ready. But I remember in the draft process, 4th round, the New York Giants, they drafted Kent Graham. I'm like, there goes my spot. I'm done. And so the 7th round, there was a guy named Dave Campo. He worked for the Atlanta Falcons. He said, Brad, if no one drafts you, there were 12 rounds at that time, then we'd like to bring you as a free agent. I said, Campo, I'm done, man. I'm done. If I don't get drafted, I didn't know how the process worked. And so I'll go back home to Black Mountain. I'll be a school teacher and coach PE and all that kind of stuff. And the 9th round came around. And my dad and I were sitting in my dorm room, and it came across the ticker. My dad he got excited. I'm like, what happened? What happened? And he said, Brad, I think you just got drafted. I said, what? We waited another minute for the ticker to come through. And I was 9th round, 227th pick to Minnesota Vikings. Denny Green, he calls about 5 minutes later and tells me I was drafted. And the guy that drafted me was a guy named Jack Burns, who actually recruited me from the University of Louisville. And he just kept up my whole career, knew my background, knew who I was, and those kind of things. So I went there. They had Rich Gannon, Sean Salisbury, and Wade Wilson, and I was just thankful to be there. And it was pretty awesome to get drafted that way. And I remember in the first one of the first games of the season, Rich Gannon got hurt, and Sean Salisbury went. He got dinged up, and he had a little slight concussion, and then so the next day in the meetings, I didn't go in the game, but I remember Jack Burns, he said, I got one quarterback that's hurt and can't play, and Rich Gannon. I got another one dinged up, doesn't know where he's at. I got another one, Brad, that's hyperventilating on the sidelines, hoping he doesn't go in the game. So I learned to be ready real quick on that kind of thing. But that's how I got drafted to the Minnesota Vikings.
And then I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I got to believe your time in the World League really poured gasoline on your development. Back then, This was 90, what?
I was there in 95.
95, okay. The World League was a big deal. I mean, yourself, John Kitna, Kurt Warner, a bunch of guys had great experiences in the World League. Talk to me about your experience there and how much it helped your development.
Yeah. My first 2 years of practice in Minnesota, I didn't get a rep in practice. My reps were thrown to a net on Tuesdays on the day off, and those kind of things. I got very little scout team reps, got training camp reps, but that was about it. And then so the World League came around, and I asked to go play in it. And it was a chance for me because I didn't play much in college. I was really good on Thursday or Friday 2-minute drills, those kind of things. But I needed to go play. I needed to go make mistakes, go lead a team, and just go play. And I did. I was a part of all of that. And then just dealing with adversity of living somewhere. The food wasn't good. The housing wasn't good. But how tough it made you. And that was the best decision I ever made, to go play. And then when I came back for the NFL, it made me ready. And the greatness of my story going to the World League is I'd been in Minnesota for enough years where I knew the system. when I came back. I didn't have to learn 3 or 4 different systems, and that was the greatness of that move also.
Well, isn't it incredible how, and we talk about this all the time in our place at Lipscomb here, and I've heard the great coaches I played for talk about it. Nothing good happens without having to do hard things. And you just talked about how hard the World League is. What'd you make, 10 grand, I'm guessing? 10 to 15 grand would be my guess.
Yep.
So you didn't make a lot of money. You ate bad food. You slept in crappy places. You had to learn a new system. You're playing with offense. I remember back then the offensive lines weren't very good. The defensive lines dominated.
Right.
You had some skill position guys, but offensive lines struggled. So it was all hard. And you're just saying now you look back, some of the best things ever happened to you. Isn't that true that so many of the hardest things we go through end up being the best things we go through?
It is. There's no doubt. And so on that team, there are 38 players. 8 of them were foreigners. And you're dealing with, our end zones were only 7 yards deep.
Didn't know that.
Kevin McDougal, he was a backup. He played Notre Dame. At the end of the year, our linemen they were going to get bonuses for least amount of sacks given. We got them on the 1 yard line. He's at the end of the game. We're going to call him 989, and he drops back. He fall out of the back of the end zone, hit his head against the wall, and the line was ticked. They were ticked off because they're getting ready to lose their bonus money. like the end zone's only 7 yards deep, guys. What are you supposed to do? But I mean, it's the stories that make you, the stories you have to tell, and those guys I played with, Michael Titley and Larry Allen, and I mean, there's just some great times we had with great ball games. But that career, it didn't. Some guys, they didn't make it through that World League either. Now, you know what I mean? It didn't. So the guys that made it through that league, they survived and went on to have NFL careers. But you had to go through the fire. I call it the ring of fire. At some point, you got to go through it, and you don't know when that time is. And the time it is, it's like the Great Depression of your life. But if you can make it through it, and you believe, and someone gives you a chance, and it kind of happens.
Well, we ended up playing against each other a bunch, 97, 98, 99. Help me with this one, because 99, I leave Tampa. They don't re-sign me. I go to Baltimore. You stay in Minnesota. You played 2000 in Minnesota, correct?
Right. And
is that the year you hurt your neck in what year, 99?
I hurt it in 90, actually end of 97.
97.
Yeah, I had a herniated disc. I ended up having surgery, couldn't grip anything with my hand, lost all the hand strength. And then 98, I came back. And that was the year we went 15-1 or whatever that was. I started the first 2 games of the season, and then I broke my ankle in game 2, and I came back, and then I broke my thumb in game 9, and so that was pretty much it. I played in 3 games that year in 98.
And then that's good, because I can brag on this. We're the one team that beat you. What was that, week 12 or 13 or something? You guys came to Tampa. You guys were 15-1. We were the team that beat you. But what I'm leading to is that, so I go play in Baltimore in 2000. And you're still in Minnesota. I'm at the ESPYs. My wife and I we're at the airport. My wife and I are at the airport after we win the Super Bowl. This is, a month later, getting ready to go to the ESPYs to represent the Ravens for Team of the Year. And I get a phone call from Matt Cavanaugh. And Matt Cavanaugh says, hey, I don't know how to say this to you, but you're a free agent, and you're number 3 on our list. And I go, what? Excuse me? Yeah. Didn't we just win the Super Bowl? He goes, and by the way, I turned down a contract extension during the season out of respect for the run we were on, to not want to be negotiating during the season. I'm like, I just turned down a contract extension in season. Now I'm number 3. And they said, Coach Billick coached Brad Johnson in Minnesota, and he's a free agent, and he's going to target Brad Johnson. If he doesn't get Brad Johnson, he's going to get Elvis Skirmick. I said, what the? And I was cool with the Brad Johnson part, because I had a great amount of respect for you. And by this time, we were friends. We'd been together in the off season. The Elvis thing still to this day makes my blood boil. But I tell that story because neither of us go to Baltimore. Elvis does. I go off to Seattle, and you go to Tampa, where I had left a year earlier. And that was, you got to play with all those guys that I came in with. And just tell me a little bit about that experience, taking that team to the Super Bowl and those incredible players you played with, because we have a mutual relationship with most of them. Yeah.
Those are crazy times that take place, for all of us. And it's musical chairs for all quarterbacks. And for me to go to Tampa, to be honest with you, Trent, I want to be the there had been three quarterbacks that had played for Tampa that went on to win Super Bowls. You at Baltimore, Doug Williams at Washington, and Steve Young in San Fran. And for me, where could I be successful? And I felt like in the end, it was going to be for me in Tampa. I felt like it was the right fit for me. And I felt like I could be the first quarterback to have won it in Tampa. And that year, I think we went 9-7 my first year in Tampa, but I felt like we overachieved to be 9-7 looking back at it. And then John Gruden came in. We made a bunch of moves in free agency and brought in Joe Jaravicius and Keenan McCardell and Ricky Dudley and Ken Dilfer and a bunch of guys. And we upgraded in talent and then made that Super Bowl, made the Super Bowl run my second year in Tampa.
And that it's interesting there because I experienced when you got there, I know what you're saying about overachieving. It was a very defensive centric, special team centric team. You're coming from a Minnesota organization that was very offensive centric. Gruden really was the one that kind of flipped the switch there and got that team going in the right direction offensively. And you still had the benefit from that great defense that Coach Dungy and Monty and Herm and all those guys built over the years. It was kind of the perfect blend of an offensive mind, the energy, the juice of Gruden, you playing quarterback, the talent you brought in with that foundation they had on defense.
Right. And so I think very much like you and I, we both play with two great defenses. You know what I mean? The money's probably more on that side, But I think what people don't understand, both you and I or whoever has done it, the Drew Brees, the Peyton Mannings, it's the worst word you call a quarterback, but to me it's the best word. It's a game manager of how do you handle your teammates? How do you handle the huddle? How do you handle the game? How do you deal with the ups and downs? How do you deal with, winning with, some people can win with, driving a Lamborghini. Some can win. Those guys can't all win driving a Pinto Chevrolet either, So the better players you have, the better you're going to succeed. But I think both you and I, in different ways, for those particular teams, I think we're both the perfect quarterbacks to have done that for those particular teams, to be honest with you.
Well, it's the ultimate team sport. I remember I was sitting with Steve Young one night on Monday Night Telecast, and we were off camera during a long break. And he says, I don't know if I ever told you this, but, you get this label of the game manager. He goes, I just want you to know as a Hall of Famer that 90% of the game is managing it. He said, those of us in the Hall of Fame, we feel the same way. Like the most important part of playing the position is making those around you better. And that happens on a Monday after a game in the film room. That happens on a Wednesday night after practice. That happens all during the week and also happens in game. So just to kind of parlay on what you're saying, I don't think either one of us have never got defensive about that label, right? That's why I respect you so much. But it is something young quarterbacks need to understand is the flash and sizzle. Man, I wish my body was in better shape in 2000. I wish I could have done some of the stuff I could do in 94, 95, 96, 97. I couldn't. So I had to use my brain, You're the same way. And you have to use your relationships. You have to use your leadership skills. And for these highly talented guys coming out, they're going to be on the sidewalk unless they learn how to manage their teams and manage the game as well. So I've always admired how you did that as well. Okay, let's finish up with the Super Bowl story. Goff and I talked about this, about the balls. I remember we had a conversation before that Super Bowl, and they got better. I was telling Jared, man, you don't understand how bad it was in 2000. I was literally throwing balls with the wax still on them. Yeah. But give me your perspective for the footballs that you had to throw in the Super Bowl. Right.
Well, it'd get me in trouble here, but I'd heard you talk about the wax on the balls. I'd heard Phil Simms talk about the wax on the ball. I'd heard Troy Aikman talk about it. Steve Young, every stinking quarterback playing that Super Bowl. So just so everybody knows real quick, it used to be if you were playing, if I was the home team, there was 12 footballs and you had to play with the 12 footballs that we had. Then it became you had your 12, I had my 12, and then the kickers messed things up. So it's your 12, my 12, and then there's 12 other separate kicking balls. Long story. Well, once you get to the NFL Super Bowl, there's 108 balls, brand spanking new. After every play, each ball goes to a sponsor. They bring it right out of a Dick's Sporting Good plastic bag and whatever sporting good you want, and it's slick. So when I watch baseball guys, they throw the ball back and they don't like it. When I see a tennis guy, they don't like the ball, they throw it away. A puck in ice hockey. Well, Rich Gann and I, we did a milk mustache commercial on that Monday of the Super Bowl. We're both like, man, we're scared to death about, these balls being slick, and I wish we could work them in like we should, So I'd played with a glove the week before. So that week, so some guys, they got the Super Bowl balls. Okay. So every year I tip the equipment managers and all these guys for whatever we get, the shirts, the ball, working and everything. So I tipped some guys some money. They worked in all 108 footballs. Okay. So it happened. So, but in the game, I warmed up with the glove because I'm like, I don't know if these balls have been worked in or not. So it took me a whole quarter to get the rosin off my hand and all that kind of stuff from wearing the glove. The balls were good, you know. So there were no problems for Rich or I. None of us complained about it. So then 10 years later, I talked about how I paid the guys to get the balls worked in. Well, then when that whole Deflategate and all that kind of stuff went down, this article, this one little print comes out in the article. Next thing I know, I got ESPN, CNN, I got Japan, China, Canada, Australia calling my house. Okay? All of them. My phone rang up. And you talk about getting tainted. My whole life got tainted. I'm like, cheating. Like, how did I cheat? So my first phone call was to Rich Gannon. I'm like, Rich. Because I wasn't going, Rich, I'm going to pay these guys some money to work in the balls. Will you split it with me? Like, is that what we're doing? So, no, the balls got worked in. I didn't complain. Rich didn't complain. I get slandered for the rest of my life for cheating. And I felt, Trent, like I should get reimbursed by the NFL for doing their job. Somebody pay me back. I'd give my social security number, you know? So it was unbelievable. But now they all work in the balls. They're perfect. Both people, they get to touch them. And I mean, it's crazy. So
it's unbelievable. I have literally no bitterness for my career except that I had to throw these crappy balls 100. I was telling Goff, the first throw of the game, we have a swing route, and I can vividly remember getting it, and my fingers are on the giant NFL Super Bowl logo. Yeah. That's like, it's slick, it's silicone, basically. And the ball slips out of my hand. I couldn't throw anything hard. I don't think I threw a ball hard the whole game because you just didn't feel confident gripping it. And now these things are like earthy brown by the time the guys play with them. There's no orange on it. All the wax, they've peed on them. They've rubbed the mud on them. They've thrown them in the dryer. They've done all the tricks to make them perfect. Yep. I'm like, it's just 21 years ago. Why couldn't they have figured this out earlier?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. All right. Let's finish up with this, your family. Every quarterback has a long journey. You look back and it's whether it's your parents, your siblings, your wife, Nikki, for you, your kids, like their investment in your journey. Just use our last few minutes together, just bragging on your family and how much they've meant to you during this journey. Yeah, it's incredible. My career, my life would not be complete without my wife, Nikki. And so she's been with me through every up and every down, long nights, can't sleep, moving zip codes from team to team. It's tough. And every quarterback that I ever worked with, I said, "Dad, you willing to go through this? Because it's not just fun. It's a grind. And when your wife has to go through it with you, she's got to be with you all the way through." So, and then our two boys, Max and Jake, they've been through I've been fortunate enough to coach all their teams and all their birthday parties and you name it. We've all done it. And we're a family. We stay together. We're tight. And, but you know, I'm thankful for every story that I have, every up, every down, because I can relate that to my kids because they're going through all of it too daily. And so I'm thankful for my family. I'm thankful to share experiences. But, you know, we try to tell our kids also that I heard a great story one time. Who are you when no one knows your name? And so sports are going to end one day, or you're not going to be in a scene where you get to say, I'm the starting guy or whatever. How are you going to act and how are you going to handle yourself and those kind of things. But very, very blessed and thankful for my family. Awesome. Brad, thanks for spending time with us. I just want you to know of all my time in the NFL, you're one of my favorite people I ever got to know. I appreciate your friendship. And thanks.
I appreciate Trent. Thank you, man. It's been great. Thank you.
Big thanks to our friends at State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Go to statefarm.com today to get a quote.